13, don't use your liberty as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Verse 14, for all the law is fulfilled in one word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then he contrasts that with legalism. Verse 15, he speaks of those who bite and devour one another. It's interesting, I don't know if any of you have ever had experience in a legalistic environment, but it's amazing how much biting and devouring goes on. I've experienced that. It's when you start to be surrounded by legalistic people, there's a lot of criticism, a lot of biting that takes place, a lot of devouring that takes place, a lot of one-upmanship and little cliques that begin to get formed. And you see that even within certain cults that practice works-based righteousness. It can become very devouring and very insidious. But Paul speaks of the true Christian liberty, which is manifested in service and love towards one another, putting one another above ourselves. The mark of a healthy church that is walking in the freedom of Christ, being rooted in Christ, is marked with loving sacrificial obedience to Christ first and foremost, and then in loving service towards one another. Steve Lawson makes this quote, just as I come to a close now. He says, no matter how doctrinally sound we may be, if we are without love, we are a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, as in 1 Corinthians 13. For without love for others, regardless of how involved we are in Christian activity, we are nothing. We must be a people of love. That's the royal law upon which all the law and the prophets are hung. And this love is given to us by the Spirit of God. It's not something that we can muster up. And I haven't got time to go into the verses 16 to 26 in any depth. But there's no coincidence that Paul speaks about what it means to walk in the Spirit. Just following this admonition and this instruction, he begins to speak to them about the importance of walking in the Spirit of God. And that's the reality of the Christian life, is that we're filled with the Spirit of God. And as we're filled with His Spirit, we begin to walk in an obedient way, in a faithful way, in a way which is pleasing to Him. Look in verse 18 just very quickly. Paul says, but if you are led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. If you're led by the Spirit of God, you're not under the law. He's dealing here with Christians, people who have the Spirit of God working in them.